it was kind of like a disappointment thing, like, well, God, what is this? And so it was kind of like one of the first crucial times where it was like, oh, well, this Christian thing isn't all great all the time.
Right. Like you were living in this kind of like fairy tale version
Yes.
of it. And you're like, oh, right,
Yes.
it's all roses and rainbows. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. There's
Exactly.
potholes. And
Yes.
Hey there, and welcome to the first episode of Freedom Storytellers. This is brought to you by Freedom Story Media, where we are all about telling stories that help you live a life of freedom and joy. And in this series, we're going to be going through the stories of some amazing people where they answer one central question. What is your freedom story? Hopefully it inspires you today.
so one of the things as related to Freedom Story Media that we like to talk about in large part is the central idea of it is this conversation about freedom and what it looks like to live free. And that's going to look different for so many people. To the level to which you understand freedom, we're going to be helping, or I'm going to be asking about your freedom story.
Okay.
So, but before we get into your actual freedom story, what about life before freedom? Like what is kind of like your story of the days in bondage or the challenges of your chains?
Probably a lot of just bad decision making, like not really caring how things appear to other people, not in terms of like just partying and just not caring if people like knew I was party, like just not taking care of myself and my character, just doing some of everything.
Yeah.
Like unrecognizable to who I am today, I would say.
So well, let's talk about what it looked like, who you were in those days in the past. So like growing up, can you briefly tell us a little bit about what your family situation was?
Yeah, I grew up. My mom and dad they weren't together, but I went to school from my dad's house every morning. So my mom and dad still had a great relationship, but just weren't together.
Mhm.
But I went to church with my grandmother every Sunday. So I grew up in the
Nice.
church, going to vacation Bible schools.
Yeah, good old VBS.
Exactly. The cookies and juice.
Yes. Was that like something? Was there like a manual? But that's what you do.
Exactly. But yeah, it just never like resonated with me. Like, I don't think it was because they didn't teach it, but I don't think like I had ever really said it like I can have a personal relationship with Jesus.
Well, you just weren't there yet. Like the Lord had
No.
not walked you to that yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So really my life, I would say, if anything, it was a lot of like just a lack of self-control. Like I was very impulsive.
Mhm.
It was kind of like, oh, if someone's like, let's do this, and I'm like, oh, okay, let's do this. Well, okay.
And what that ended up taking you into places that like you're like, oh, I probably shouldn't have
I
been there or done that.
probably shouldn't be here. It was just like a lot of like times where it was like I just wasn't able to tell people no, and just like ended up in a lot of bad situations because I was just like no self-control, no backbone, just out there.
Yeah. What would you say, looking back now, what would you say is one or two messages that you should have, that if had you actually received it, you think would have maybe helped to change the tide there?
I think it would have been more to just like to honor myself because I am like a child of God. Like I don't have to like accept everything that everybody is trying to put upon me. Like I'm free in Christ. So I think like it was a lot of like, oh, I need to please this person, do what this person says, even though I necessarily didn't want to do any of those things. So I just think like just recognizing, if I was able to recognize who I was in Christ, and then just, recognize that I was actually had a friend in him, that I could like go to him and talk to him and just not take everything on myself.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're growing up in this household. You've got Sunday or vacation Bible school. You're going to church on Sundays with your grandmother. Um, do you have any siblings? What's that?
I do have siblings. I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters.
All right. Oh wow. So you got a sizable group there. And then let's see, you graduate high school. Did you go off to college? Did you start working, or what did you do?
I did graduate high school. I did not go to college right away. I ended up getting pregnant and having my daughter at 19. So I went to work. I worked in corporate America from 19 till probably 2014.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So there was a stint in there where I was a stay-at-home mom for like 3 or 4 years before, but for the most part, I worked consistently throughout that time.
Okay. And then so at what point, actually, no, maybe we don't even describe that yet. So like in that journey, I'm imagining at 19, you're still in more of the impulsive, not yet really
Yeah, for sure.
figuring out who you are in the Lord, right?
Yeah.
And there's mistakes, and we don't have to get into all of them because we don't have that kind of time. But what do you think was a pivotal experience or a moment that made you realize, I don't think this is the way, or like going back to what we talked about, that was like, maybe I need to learn a lesson here? Like what was there a moment or an experience that you think was critical, or were there certain people that were critical in that situation?
Yeah, I started attending a church and I think it was like 2000, 2001 maybe, and they were like a side church from like this mega church that was down in Chicago, and I really learned a lot about the Bible and about Jesus there. And I felt like there was more like practical teaching, like how this applies to you and how your relationship with Jesus should be. Like it taught me like prayer classes. Like it was just very like an intense learning environment. And I think yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask. So impulsive 19-year-old fast forwards to this young woman who's in this church. Were you continuing to go to church all through all of those years?
No, I probably stopped going to church maybe around 14.
Okay.
And from 14 to probably 20, I just wasn't in church at all.
So let me ask it this way. What brought you to church?
Honestly, my ex-husband.
Okay.
We just started like one of his relatives invited us to this church, and so we went, and honestly we both gave our lives to Christ that day.
Come on, there we go. That's where I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I think I was young then.
was that the church that you were just describing?
Yes.
2000. Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys got invited, and did you just go because you're like, sure, why not?
Yeah, because it's like if we don't go, like they're gonna keep asking us, so let's just go.
And you've got a church background, so it's not like you're anti.
Yeah, we had been to church. It wasn't like we don't even know what church is about, but it's like, okay, let's just go and so that we could say we went.
Well, there you go. So hey, for those of you who are a part of churches and you're not sure if you should invite somebody because you don't think it matters, guess what? Sometimes they just show up.
Exactly.
And then the Lord does his thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So okay, so now you've experienced church at this this smaller kind of, well, I don't know, you said it was an offshoot, but I don't know how small that really is. Like, is that...
It was definitely small. It was probably like, I would say no more than 20 people.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that encourages me, first of all, that like, the Lord, and I know this, but I love hearing
Yeah.
stories that confirm this. And I didn't know that until this moment right now,
Yeah.
that was part of your experience. Because there's a prevailing understanding of like the bigger is better. That I know not to be true. And I love to hear stories that confirm it, because I came to know the Lord in my garage alone. You know what I mean? And like, you came to know him in a max 20 plus person church,
Yeah, exactly.
And so anyways, so you come to know God in this small congregation, and between that point and I think when you walked in the doors of Torch years ago, I don't even know what year that would have been, like 2011?
2011, yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'm a good guesser. Okay. I just guessed it when I started, and I remembered you came like maybe about a year later.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did your relationship with the Lord look like? What was the writing of your freedom story at that point? Because you really met Jesus, and then what? Like, what did that look like?
Honestly, in the beginning, it was like super intense. Like I've I have a group of friends. There's 4 of us, well, total 5 with me, and we've been friends since we were 11. And so we grew up, we were going out, we were partying, and then once I gave my life to Christ, I like literally, I did not go anywhere. I did not drink. Like, I was serious. I did a complete life switch. Like, and they will like tell you, like, they were just like, wow. Like, I went through a time where I wasn't really even seeing them because our lives were just totally different.
Right. It doesn't work. Yeah. It's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm going in a different direction right now.
Exactly. Yeah. I spent hours praying. I was serious. And so I think during that time I just learned like a lot about God. And then I also just like developed this intimate relationship with him. And then like, as the years went by, my ex-husband and I got divorced, and that was like a really challenging time because it was like kind of like it was kind of like a disappointment thing, like, well, God, what is this? And so it was kind of like one of the first crucial times where it was like, oh, well, this Christian thing isn't all great all the time.
Right. Like, you were living in this kind of like fairy tale version of it, and you're like, oh, right, it's all roses and rainbows, and it was like, oh, wait a minute, there's potholes and pits.
Yes. Because honestly, before I got divorced, you could not tell me that anything ever like that would ever happen to me. I was just like, my life is great going forward. Goodbye. Like, there's nothing you could say to me. And so like that was a really, challenging time. But I think during that time I did grow closer to the Lord because it was just me and him a lot, because I was just like really struggling, like just being a single mom and like worrying about things that I never worried about before in my life ever. So I think like that built like just a solid foundation of like, I do know that the Lord is going to have my back, and he's always there no matter what.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that like someone can try to tell you, but it doesn't hit until you experience some of that,
Exactly.
Like we wouldn't choose those painful seasons, and like Paul said, the thorn in his side, and even like Jesus said with the cup, he didn't want the cup that was the death on the cross. But like through those, that's really how we get so much closer to the Lord. I remember I've had my versions of some deep pains, and I won't go into all those right now, but one of those that that really struck me as a time where the Lord was really trying to get a hold of me, was when we found out that Mateo was autistic.
Mhm.
And I felt like the Lord had been preparing me for
Yeah.
that in some ways, because I didn't for most of my life, I didn't know anybody that was on the spectrum. And then, like, I think in the couple of years prior to that, like, there had just been a proliferation of so many people that, like,
Yeah.
had, interactions with that. And then even there was well, I don't want to go into too much, but like in the moment when we were discovering that, it didn't like rip me to my core, but
Yeah.
like it was hard. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to change so many things.
Yeah.
How do we do this? And I wrote a song, actually. Oh gosh, am I going to share the song? I think I'm going to share the song. I'll put that in the description or something.
Okay.
I'm not going to play it here.
Yeah.
But I wrote a song that came out of that season called To Know You More. And it was talking about how the challenges and the difficulties of life actually draw us closer to God. And it's through those that we actually get to know him more and
Okay.
understand shades of his heart that we wouldn't understand in the sunshine,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you're going through those shaded moments where, like, okay, it's overcast right now. It's not all, bright and sunny. And then is there a season where you now start to feel like, okay, the clouds are moving, and maybe there's another version of your walk with the Lord?
Yeah, honestly, and it was probably when I came to church. It was because church was very different than the church I was going to
Mhm.
previously. And I would say it was probably more modern, and it just talked about different things. Actually, what drew me in was there was a billboard that they had put out, and it was like, let's talk about sex. And I was like, excuse me, what is this church doing over here? 'Cause back then I was so conservative. I was
Right.
just like, anything like out of my box, I was like, that no. So
You're
I
doing
wanted
it
to come
wrong.
and yes, exactly. Wanted to come and see what it was about. And I just love the community. And I love that they were teaching people like from where they were. Cause not
Right.
everybody that walks in the door is like a Christian,
Yeah.
So yeah, you should be talking about sex and what God says about it. And
Right. And all
so
the real things of life. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very practical teaching there too. So I think it just like took me to another level in terms of like, all Christians are not the same.
Mhm.
Like, and it's not to say that they're not Christians. We're just not the same, but we
Right.
still all serve the same God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So from that point to today, I know a lot has evolved and changed. Between that season, what would you say were some of your greatest challenges? And maybe how did you see the Lord meet you in those challenges?
I think probably my biggest challenge and something I still struggle with today is just a lack of like self confidence.
Mm,
I think that's one struggle that I've probably had my entire life. That's something that I always got to go back to the Lord to. And,
mm,
but I just think over time, I can see how like he's been like challenging me in that area
mhm.
and giving me opportunities to like step out of my comfort zone because I'll stay in the background as long as people will let me. Like, but I think like there's times when it's like you're doing that as a disservice, not only to yourself, but to the
Right.
kingdom of God. Cause it's like you're not put on this earth to just be in the background. Like
Right.
I'm
Right.
supposed
He
to
didn't
be
he didn't light you up to then put a shade over you, right?
exactly like you put me here to do something, but if I just keep being like, no, 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 I'm missing
Yeah.
out on my purpose and and helping other people.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, excellent that you're figuring that out. Not excellent that you are.
Taking baby steps, like,
Hey, but you know, every step in the
yeah,
direction towards our purpose and our calling and what the Lord has really put us here for, like
yeah,
that's beautiful. That
yeah,
is, you know, something worthy
exactly.
to be celebrated. So what about these days? What is something that you're excited about, maybe in life or ministry?
Something I'm really excited about. I um, joined the Presbyterian Church, which is new. I went from Baptist to non-denominational, and now officially I am a Presbyterian. But tomorrow I'm doing like the official ceremony, so that is really exciting. I really like the Presbyterian Church because they're just like the next level of what I will say is modern.
Okay, okay.
Especially because I'm telling you, I was super conservative. So really seeing myself here today is just like, wow, because I was just so rigid in like
Yeah.
how I thought Christians should act and behave. But it's like, no, you Christians can get in and mix it up with everybody, and as long as we're taking care of, each other, the community. So I'm just really excited because this church is like into like um they do like a pad shelter. They house like men and women and children.
So they're an emergency shelter for pads.
Yeah, I think they do it like once a week.
Oh,
And
so not even just emergency. So yeah.
yeah, no, they're like a site, and they have these different like anti-racism boards. I just joined that, so I'm pretty excited about that. So I'm just excited about this new chapter and seeing like where it's gonna go and where it's gonna lead. And yeah.
That's super cool. I'm actually really um intrigued by the pad shelter. That's always been an issue that, for me was always something that I felt like the Lord had given me a passion to be on mission to help resolve. And that's part of with the Unshackled Network, where I think the focal point on marginalized communities really was starting, is wanting to be a part of resolving homelessness to whatever degree we could. So speaking of the Unshackled Network, you've been connected with it for a little bit now. Tell us a little bit about what drew you in and what you've appreciated about it.
Well, I started out doing the Kingdom Justice Project, which is, well, initially we were just meeting because, 2020 was quite challenging in the in the justice realm.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I appreciated that you started this group and that looking at justice from a biblical perspective, because I think a lot of people don't realize like that the two are connected, per se. And I think that's really how you have to do justice. If you do it any other way,
Not justice.
it's not justice.
Right, right.
And honestly, for me, it's become like a support group.
So that's what I've discovered that it actually is, and I keep trying to turn it into something else.
Yeah, no, I think
But
it's
I think that's
really
what it is.
good.
Yeah.
Very organic in that way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's ultimately what the Unshackled Network is. It's about it's a support system, like not a support group, but a support system
Yeah.
for organic expressions of the
Yes.
church, and
No.
not so much like these huge formalized, huge budget things that we're this is what we're gonna do. No, it's like
Yeah.
we've got the Holy Spirit, we've got us, and we've got those that need him. You know what I mean? Let's go. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that.
And I think
Yeah.
that's what I like most about the Unshackled Network. Like, initially I wasn't really sure what it was. I was
Yeah.
just because initially I thought you had a church and then you did some other things. And then I was like, oh, he doesn't even have a church.
No, this is the church.
And just like meeting the other guys, and especially like listening to Jonathan, like how he has that Beats, Bars, and Bibles ministry, and how like how that brings together like people from all, walks of life. And I think, sometimes when you have like a group like that, and it's supposed to be like a Christian group, sometimes you don't get around to the Christian things.
Right.
But I think like it's just built in and baked in, but they're also like creating music and hip hop together. And that is just really cool.
Yeah. And they're really developing a brotherhood there.
Yeah.
Where like I'm in their chat group, and there's one guy who just like, he's got a job but his car is broken down, and they're picking him up and taking him to and from work. Like people are jumping in and help. Like I'm like, that's church. Don't tell me that's not church.
Exactly. I think that's really cool. And like I said, my old conservative self would have probably been like, hip hop? Jesus, like I would have clutched my pearls.
You said clutch.
But I'm just like, that is, like you said, that is what church is. And I think like, that needs to be communicated more heavily. And I think everybody should just really get into that type of church.
Yeah, I mean, and it's the thing is, that's what I'm appreciating about it, and that's why we called it the Unshackled Network, is because it's free. Like it doesn't even, when I say free, meaning like where do you meet Jesus? Like where does Jesus show up in your life? And then like, where do you do life? Like, and why isn't Jesus there? Bring him there. And
Exactly.
you know what I mean? Like the whole reason why Beats, Bars, and Bible started was because I was making music. I was making beats, and young guys were like, hey, you make beats. Can you teach me? And I was like, sure. And so as I'm teaching them, I'm like, hey, I know Jesus. Do you want to know about him? And they're like, I don't know, maybe, but we can talk about these beats for sure. So I was like, okay, well, they said maybe, that's enough.
Exactly.
And then it was like, wait a minute, why am I having these one-on-one conversations? Brought them together, and the rest is history. And now Jonathan is taking it to another level, and he's a real musician, So it's just free to be whatever God wants it to be, to just connect people. And like it doesn't have, it's not chained to our expectations of what the church is and of how God moves and what he wants to do.
Yeah.
It's
so funny how we think we know exactly how God
like the Kingdom Justice Project. Like I talk about how free it is, but I kept trying to make it into a thing that I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And like, no, it's his, and what he wants it to be is this place where these people need to come together and support one another as they're pursuing Jesus and justice.
Exactly.
End of story. Like,
Period.
Yeah. It's so good. And I'm so excited to have you along the journey. And now you're getting to do a lot of other stuff, kind of in the realm of the media and the Freedom Story media side of things as well. So it's been really exciting. What would you say, as we kind of wrap here, that if there's anything else that you want people to know from your story, to take away, what would be one, additional thing that you might have for them, if there's anything else?
I think for me, it would just be, just don't procrastinate. Like if you're struggling, you're walking with the Lord, just build that community, like trust that community of believers that you have around you. Don't isolate and try to do things on your own, because the enemy is like so quick to get in there and try to get you off your path. Sometimes I did a lot of isolating when I really should have been in community. And I just think like, if I had learned, our story isn't what our story is. But I
Yeah,
think
that's right. That's right.
yeah, that would have helped me though. If I had stayed in community, I wouldn't have, struggled as much as I did,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that, Jarael. If people want to interact with you specifically, is there any way that would be appropriate for them to connect with you?
Well, I am on Twitter, and I think my Twitter handle is like Cosmano_Jariel. I think that's it. And then I'm on Instagram too. I think it's JJL3Mom.
Okay.
No, JJL Mom 3. Sorry.
JJL Mom 3. There you go.
Yes, yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that. And you guys, if you do want to reach out to Jarael, maybe ask her some questions, maybe connect with her more, that's how you can do that. And thank you again for this time, Jarael.
You're welcome.
Hey, well, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you're listening via audio podcast, make sure you subscribe wherever you listen and make sure that you share that with a friend. And do the same if you're watching, whether it be on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever else you're catching this. Make sure you like it, make sure you follow, and hey, leave us a comment. We would love to continue to be in conversation with you and help connect you with more, not only inspiring stories, but some of the brands that we create here through Freedom Story Media, where we are all about helping you live a life of freedom and joy. Be blessed and be a blessing.